All right. Hey everyone. How everyone is doing? Guys, can you those that are watching now on YouTube, Facebook, or LinkedIn, can you put something in the chat whether you hear me all right or see me? Is everything good or no? Just for me to know that all is good there. Anyone? I know we had a slight delay, but should be fine. Just 1 minute. Yeah, I think we're streaming. Just go ahead and check myself. Just make sure. We hear you, see you. Oh, awesome. Oh, great job. Hey, thanks, Kelly. Thanks, Yuri. That's great. Hey, everyone. That's great. Awesome. All right. Because somehow it just didn't want to start. But yeah, well, great to see everyone. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for tuning in. Hey, Jill. Hope everyone having a great productive day. I know it's been a very busy week for everyone. Hey, Tony. Valeria, Ivan. Okay, great. Awesome. All right. Perfect. Yeah. Thanks everyone for joining in. I would like to take 90 minutes of your time today, and I promise that you're not going to hate me after those 90 minutes because me and other guys, we prepared a lot of really cool insights for you, and we hope there will be a lot of live conversation. I love the energy in the chat today, so thank you so much everyone that are engaging in the chat. So keep that energy high, ask questions, engage. We'll be putting on some questions on the screen and so on and so forth. So without further ado, I just really wanted to share my screen real quick and then basically get everyone why we are here, right? So all right, let me just do this. I don't like how my sorry no. All right, let it be. So we're going to be talking today about the Outreach 2026, right? I was able to work on this event together with our Belkins tech partners. So you probably already saw me doing events with all of them, and we would love to do that more often. Belkin's been preferred partners with Reply for the last 10 years. We are using Reply for our cold email outreach, but I know Reply is doing much more than that, but just the way we prefer to use them. Expandi has been our LinkedIn partners. We've been using and working with Expandi for our LinkedIn outreach capabilities. And we started working with Peter and Nooks team 2 years ago, and then working with them and using them for our calling efforts as well. So really, these are the teams and the companies that we have a very strong relationships with, and all of us were able to get together to pull all our data together. There's a lot of Belkins data that we are using for clients, but also just generally a lot of their own proprietary data and their all insights together to create this benchmark report for you. So you guys are able to just scan this QR code if you haven't checked the benchmark report yourself. So just go ahead and do that. Just scan the QR code. You can download it. It's a 70 pages, very cool, lots of insights. We're not gonna talk about the report all the time. These are some of the. Sorry, that's my bad. These are some of the kind of insights from the report, but really today we wanted to talk more than that. We want to talk about the outreach. So every speaker prepared some information and some insights that we haven't included in the report, especially around best practices and just generally finding out what the hell is going on in the outreach market right now. Because as we all know, there is a lot of transformation happening, a lot of buzz, a lot of, I would say like even misleading information that I not necessarily agree with 100%. Maybe it's going to work for someone, but I don't know. But really, we wanted to just proof test all of that. And I know whatever everyone on this event going to show you, I know that it's a guaranteed value and effectively because all of us are, that's what we do for a living all the time. So yeah, without further ado, let me just bring everyone in here. So George, Brando, and Peter Matao. Hey guys,
Hey, Michael.
sorry for keeping you waiting in the meeting room, in the waiting room. I was just talking to a chat with people joining in and just getting some ground rules. So thanks again for doing this with me. Really appreciate you guys. Again, I mentioned like it's so busy. Everyone is super busy. My founder Vlad created this newsletter when he said that October is the new September, as if like people pushed a lot of decision making from September to October. Everyone had a longer vacation this year. Guys that are listening to us, do you agree with this or not? But that's what we noticed. So October is a super busy month for everyone. So the fact that you guys spend your time working on these slides for us, and then the fact that you are here, and then everyone that is listening to us that join in today, really appreciate everyone. So thank you so much. All right. So we're going to be staying here for another like 70, 80 minutes. So please, guys, try to finish and stay with us. We're also going to be here with you working all this time. So we're not going to go anywhere. There's not going to be no waiting room anymore. We all are here. And the way we're going to do it is each one of us have a few slides we wanted to show. So we're going to start with George, and then Mateo with the Expandi will present, and then Peter with Nooks, and then I will finish with some of the Belkin slides. And then after each presentation, we're going to have a quick discussion, 5-10 minutes. So guys, feel free to drop your questions in the chat. We're going to present them. They obviously can be directed to the speaker, but also just generally any outreach questions you wanted to discuss meanwhile, so that we all have some fun. It's welcome. So feel free to do all of that. So before we dive in, quick question for everyone. Everyone here, guys, as well as people in the chat and people are listening to us. How would you describe Outreach 2025 in a few words, one or two words? What's the sentiment brings the Outreach, in 2025? George, because you are the first speaker, so
Right. All right. So, hi everyone. Thanks for joining. Glad to be here. We were just chatting before the meeting. I was missing these live events. We were doing quite a lot of them in the past. So, glad we could get together. If I were to describe 2020, well, actually, if we were to extend it to like a year, from mid 2024 to mid 25 for me. For me, the word is roller coaster, to be honest. At least for us internally at Reply, there's quite a lot happening, both externally and internally. So externally, many businesses have seen kind of downturn over the past couple of years in sales and just generally challenges around the sales tech space in general. And starting in the beginning of this year, we've seen quite a huge jump. For us, that's been, and I will be talking about this more, it's been due to AI and our big bet on AI as a foundational technology.
yeah.
But right now we're on
Roller
that
coaster.
kind of, on that
Yeah.
hockey stick curve right now.
Awesome. So roller coaster for Reply.
Yeah.
Guys, put in the chat what's the sentiment? How do you describe your Outreach 2025? For George in Reply, it's a roller coaster. Matteo, what's Outreach 25 for you guys?
Well, first off, again, thanks for having me as well. It's a pleasure and honor to be here. I'd say that the biggest shift that we have seen in 2025 is the fact that the old spray and pray tactic that was often used by many people on LinkedIn, which means basically going for the high numbers, doesn't just work as effectively anymore. We are seeing how LinkedIn is changing to much more of a behavioral platform, in the sense that we really need to use much more of the signals that our leads leave around the platform. So the post they're liking, the comment they're leaving, we really need to use much more of those type of triggers and much more of their actions compared to how we could have done it before, which was a bit more crude, a bit more raw. Now it's beginning to become more and more advanced and more complex, how we need to structure our outreach and how we need to use our signals. But again, we're going to talk about this in a more deeply way later.
Thank you, Mateo. Peter?
Yeah, actually, well, great to see everybody again. This is exciting to be able to join you all. Just to kind of build on what Mateo was saying, I totally agree on the idea of those signals, and I think what I'll plan on talking about is just how important it is to use those signals in order to personalize, customize, have more of a relationship building that you're doing. So using those signals not only to trigger now is the time, but also to trigger what is it that you want to say and how should you say it in order to do a multi-channel approach and have just a great conversation with people that they think is valuable, not just an intrusion.
Yeah. So people here in the chat say that the sentiment for them is uncertainty, like tossing paper airplanes into a black hole. Agree with that as well. Authenticity beats automation, yes. And just generally everything is more sensitive. I think just to summarize all of that, and I agree with all of you guys, we feel like, my summary is like a transformation. Like I feel like it's been a transformative year for outreach. Probably because for some the old book doesn't work anymore. For some are discovering the new book. AI is really pressing, and the rules are changing. SEO and content game is different right now. LinkedIn is changing their algorithm. The email, Google spam filters, everything is changing, as well as the buyers are changing as a result of that, right? So I think like today we're really going to talk about what that transformation going to look like for everyone, and then what are those kind of early signals that we've been seeing in the industry that could just get some folks here inspired, right? So I think like, guys, there are two types of value from this conversation with all of us, right? The first one is the actual tactics and best practices that you can implement on a daily basis. But I'm sure that a lot of people that are listening to us, that are follow all of us on social, they've been either know some of those tactics or here. So I think like the other way of the value for this call would be just getting inspired and just getting your brain going and generating some ideas, because at the end of the day, it's like to create an authenticity and just to have a better kind of more robust playbook. It requires some more fundamental knowledge of all of that, not just the tactical, like, oh, I'm just gonna fix this or that and then I'm gonna be successful. Rather, like, what's my overall approach to work with customers, right? So yeah. So I know each one of us, all you guys have been working on something special. So we're gonna talk about that later. So I think like I'm not gonna just spend more time. We're gonna just dive into an actual insights, and then as we're going to be progressing, we're going to talk more about just unique things you guys are kind of working on, and the way you think about each one of your guys' channel and just general outreach in general. Okay, so we're going to start with George. George, so let me just put on some slides for you here. All right. And then,
All right.
Cool.
Thanks, Michael. Let's begin. But I do agree with everything that the panel has been saying. I feel like we're going to be talking about more or less the same thing today, which is the main theme over the past, let's say, couple of years has been that the sales tech is being democratized and generally being more accessible than ever to anyone, and therefore is being the value of let's say automation as it is being diluted by people who are doing automation for the sake of automation, while people gathering here are recognizing that we're not in 2015 anymore. So it's important to do it with purpose, with respect to the people that we're reaching out to, and all of that. So with that, I'm going to be talking about our view on how sales outreach is evolving, and more broadly, not just sales outreach, but any B2B outreach in general, because that's the space we're in. It's either sales or marketing or recruiting or investor outreach, raising funds, and any kind of outreach where one-to-many is important, but not, again, for the sake of it, just to spam people with irrelevant stuff, but things that drive results, meaning drive opens, replies, meetings booked, and ultimately deals closed if we're talking about sales. So today I'm going to share, in my view, the most practical things that we have learned over the past year or so. So let me quickly see if I can control this. Yes, I can. All right. So number one is this proliferation of sales technologies, and quite honestly, I can call myself guilty of that a little bit, where you fall into this trap of if you know a lot of sales tools and if you recognize their value, it kind of feels like you're one of the chosen few, because not many people have the freedom of testing, evaluating, seeing what else is on the market for sales outreach, sales automation, or sales engagement, or sales intelligence, and everything around it. There's probably 1,000 different tools out there that are in this space. So falling into that trap, based on my experience, is a trap. Meaning, you have two opposites. You have one approach where you try to find kind of as much all-in-one solution as possible in terms of technology. And on the other end of the spectrum, you have this specialized tools that you use one thing for email validation, you use another thing for email automation, you use the third thing for enrichment, and so on. So these are two kind of extremes. And in my view, anyways, too many tools create too much chaos. So what I've seen is selecting the chosen few, which I believe people represented here are a good example of those chosen few tools, is kind of the real secret. Where it's not so much about just bundling feature upon feature, but being kind of strategic and more importantly, disciplined about how you use those solutions. It's good to have 15 different solutions, but if you're only using 15% of each and every one of them, and then spending most of the time stitching them together and then fixing things that are breaking, it's not really worth it. So again, fewer, smarter tools that integrate seamlessly, which allows faster and cleaner execution while keeping your focus sharp. Moving on, so multi-channel. Obviously, we are always preaching multi-channel outreach. That's something we've been for at least, I don't know, 7 to 8 years out of 10 years of our existence, because we're a multi-channel outreach tool. And one channel simply isn't enough, especially in 2025 and going into 2026, because typically, again, I'm mostly talking about things that relate to B2B space, not so much B2C. But in B2B, buyers typically live in multiple inboxes, a few places, and kind of being in control of those channels is key today. So it's not only about email, it's not only about LinkedIn, it's not only about phone calls, but kind of looking at those things cohesively and in a unified manner, which is again what we preach as a multi-channel sequencing tool.
Just to add real quick, George, here, it's all about creating the touch points, right? And when the old mindset was, we just need to increase the sequence length and just get more steps into that sequence using that one channel or so, then as you just pointed out, right, like everyone is living in the median of different channels, and you really can only build an effective sequence when you have kind of multiple channels interconnecting with each other, and you just kind of understand how to operate and switch between them and use them effectively within the the engagement of the customer within this or that one, and just ultimately kind of building those touch points and surrounding customer with the with your brand and your marketing and so on and so forth. And to do that, you just really need to be good at all of those channels, right? So
yeah, that's very true. What we the way I usually try to describe it to our customers is that it's never about just, hey, use multiple channels and bombard people with your sales pitch.
Yeah.
It never works. It rarely works, if ever. But it's more about how would you as a human approach that ideal customer if you had all the time in the world.
Yeah.
And the way you would do it is you would try to make a connection. You would try to talk about things that are not necessarily about business with them, build rapport. and all of that kind of ties together into this multi-channel outreach. Usually it means having one flagship channel, whichever it is for you. That's up to you to decide. And then kind of supporting the main channel where you convey the main idea, while also connecting with them on LinkedIn, sending them other message depending on where you are in the world. Some countries prefer, let's say, WhatsApp as a channel, so why not use that? But yeah, you're right. It is status quo that's been around for years is no longer here. Meaning, it's not about just making a longer sequence. It's not about just shoving thousands and hundreds of thousands of people into the sequence just to burn through valuable leads. It's being more strategic, more about the multi-channel and conditional multi-channel. More importantly, what we mean by multi-channel is not just, hey, use this channel, and this, but use them in a smart way. Look at what's happening in each step, and then based on that outcome, go to another step that is the best outcome from that touch point. Either way, not to keep this too long, because I know we have limited time.
Yeah.
The generic outbound. Honestly, I was kind of debating whether to keep this slide or not, because this is so obvious, and it has been obvious for years. Not sending generic stuff, but the moment I decided to keep this slide in is when I got another one of those, hey, hope this email finds you well in my inbox. So I decided, yeah, it's worth repeating. You don't want to send those emails today. Like people, as you see here, people smell templates, and you can remember the last time you saw an email that looks like it's being sent to 1,000 other people, and you wanted to respond to it. So therefore, you want to do a bit of research. You want to do, and we're going to talk about some of the AI stuff. Semi-automation is where we see the kind of the most powerful sales sequences happening today. It kind of balances depth with scale, and being able to do so hundreds or potentially thousands of times. Moving on, signals. Everybody's going to be talking about signals today, and we're not an exception. So signals, and they could mean different things. We can talk about like inbound signals. We can talk about signals that are happening without your involvement at all. Companies that come to mind, the first one that comes to my mind, at least based on my previous experience, is Trigify. They're doing a great job uncovering some of the events that are happening on LinkedIn, just so you can jump onto that conversation, onto that thread, listen to things that people are commenting about, or posting about, or just following people around a certain topic. And that's your great cue that you want to leverage, and ideally quickly, without waiting for too long. So signals are extremely important, and we're also going to be talking about signals like inbound signals, things that are happening on your website, things that you are more in control of. Those are also very powerful. You don't want to just grab a cold list, just like many people still do. And I work with a lot of agencies, Belkins being one of the best ones out there. And we see even agencies, people whose bread and butter it is to do sales outreach, they're still doing and bragging about the same thing, which is, hey, I target, X amount of leads every month, every week, or whatnot, like millions, which is, it's a vanity metric at this point. When you're talking about numbers at the top of the funnel, but not talking about the outcomes, it's it's only so much that it can do. So moving on, our favorite topic this year, not just this year, but this is where we see the sales tech is evolving. We call it AI SDR. Our brand name for this is Jason AI SDR. This is not mainstream yet, but we are already seeing early results, and this is why we're very bullish on AI SDR. So when saying AI SDR, many people may talk about different things. We're not talking about robocalls. We're not talking about faking and deceiving people into, let's say, making a sale. We're talking about smart automation of primarily top of the funnel efforts without replacing your SDRs. If anything, your SDRs are going to be even more in demand because they're going to be needed to orchestrate this army of agents that are scaling your business, scaling the number of meetings booked for your sales team. So it's more about working smarter and not harder, and automating these routine tasks, finding people, messaging people, and then booking meetings with people, which can be done with, happy to provide some examples. Absolutely. Moving on. Infrastructure. This is a boring subject, but has never been more important. So by infrastructure, we mean, at least in our space, we're talking about proper domain and email account warm-up process, deliverability setup, making sure that you understand what affects deliverability, of which there's a few dozen things that affect your deliverability. Some of it is in your control, some of it is not. But being in the know on the infrastructure efficiency is extremely important. Again, warm-up process. Your outreach will be only as powerful as good of an infrastructure you have. Things like, I think I have another slide about this. Yeah, let's move on to the next one. Things like Outlook. A lot of people still don't know that Outlook requires more time spent into making it more efficient. So let's take email outreach as an example. When you're reaching out to people from Gmail to Gmail, from Outlook to Outlook, that's kind of the, again, the table stakes. At this point, you want to be able to reach them where they are using the same email provider. But a lot of people don't know that Outlook requires you to, not requires, but it is more efficient if your mailboxes have been around for a while, at least 6 months. So if you have created an Outlook account just yesterday and doing mass outreach, you're probably just statistically going to be less successful compared to if you were to use an existing Outlook account or another email provider. So things of that nature are extremely important in at least just understanding what affects this whole process. So you can be kind of armed with the right tools and the right vendors. A lot of vendors, especially in the email space, they will sell you a pre-warmed mailboxes or at least tools to warm up your mailboxes. Again, shameless plug, Reply also has a warm-up tool to warm up your emails, to even warm up your LinkedIn accounts with certain activities that will drive the efficiency of further campaigns higher. So there's quite a lot to it, and it's important to.
You mentioned age, George. I just wanted to second that. We've seen that the age of the domain or a subdomain is very, very important. So it's tough out there for new companies that are setting up new domains and new infrastructure, and whatever deal you're looking for to kind of get this infrastructure up and running real quickly probably would be very hard or almost impossible. So again, older established businesses that had a history of their domain and their Outlook has been around for 5-10 years would have a much higher chances into outreach than the new one. We've seen that firsthand. And whatever we've been doing with our warm up, with testing, if we're trying to build up a new infrastructure, it's work 1 out of 3, 1 of 4 maybe cases for us, really, just because, again, age is important. So just wanted to kind of second that you mentioned age, George, and so and again, it's just the world we're living. So if you're if you're doing this longer and you have a history of proof or something, then obviously you're going to have a priority. And then if you're starting out, then you need to hustle, right? So.
That's true. Yeah. Well, you have two choices basically, and we've seen, by the way, even from like seasoned agencies, they're like throwing their hands up in the air and saying it no longer works. I want to do something else. Whereas it's more like, as with anything else, it's more about being more focused and being more strategic about these things. So for instance, with let's say even going back to Outlook versus Gmail versus anything else, just design a smarter flow, conditional flow in your sequence that looks at whether it's an Outlook or not. If it is, then maybe start with a LinkedIn touch point as opposed to an email, for instance. But there's a million different strategies. Again, it's just being smart about it, and you're going to be one of the few people who are smart about it, because again, everybody else is doing either the same thing or just abandoning outreach completely, which is, it will always be around. There's no doubt about it. I'm going to try to speed up because I understand there's a limited time, and I still see I still have around 7 slides here. Outbound versus inbound, it's never, even though internally within organizations, there's usually a bit of a tension between marketing, sales, and it's again also a constant. It's usually a combination of both. So the way we thankfully we have a great marketing department. Hopefully some of them are watching right now. So combining inbound lead generation with everything from LinkedIn ads to even events like this one, with then capturing that intent, capturing people's attention, looking at your website, who's visiting which organizations. I'm going to give a shout out to RB2B, another good tool to uncover who's visiting, who's doing things on your websites, and then launching an outbound campaign to them. That's the best combination. So it's always a combination of inbound with outbound that works great, at least again in our experience. Signals. Hold on. Where's the signals? Yeah, signals is the next one. Live data. This slide, I wanted to highlight that there are multiple ways to get contact data, and it's no longer just having a single Zoom Info subscription as you would have again 10 years ago. So there are ways to find contact data that it exists as of this moment right now. We in Reply internally we call it live data or evergreen data, and this is again these are these contact details of people that are within your ICP, but also people that are showing certain signs of being certain signals of being the right contact for you at this moment in time. So if you haven't yet, look into not just and nothing against Zoom Info or Apollo or all of those guys, but look into diversifying it with live data tools. They have their downsides. They're not spitting 1,000 contacts at you within a second. They're kind of bringing them gradually, one by one, let's say 100 every day. But there are tools like that, and you're also welcome to look at Reply because we do that as well. Inbound signals. This is where we talk about things like our B2B. Again, I already brought this up. When you're seeing that somebody's visiting your website, but not just your website, but a specific landing page that you designed for a specific cohort of your customers, it's a crime not to pair it with an outbound motion, whether it's a campaign, whether it's a combination of tools, but always leverage that knowledge that somebody from, I'm going to use my example, somebody from a sales agency is looking at an agency edition of Reply. Why not reach out, grab live data, contacts that exist and work at that company as of today, and use that as an entry point to strike that conversation. Somebody's asking what tool to use to get live data. Look at Reply, talk to us, but not to make it into a pitch.
No pitches, George, please.
Sure, no problem. Organic reach. So this was suggested by marketing. This is less of organic reach, meaning outreach on LinkedIn, but this is more about using LinkedIn as a marketing channel for lead generation with content. And this a lot of people, a lot of influencers have been complaining about this, that their organic reach to their audiences has shrunk lately. Again, this comes directly from our marketing. Do not.
It's fair.
put all your eggs in. And Michael, you may also kind of attest to this. It's been harder to get those views and likes and everything, at least based on the stats that LinkedIn is reporting. So putting all your eggs into that marketing basket is probably not the best idea. Again, pair it with things like even ads, paid, other social media, and obviously outbound. Combine it with outbound.
Like LinkedIn is also trying to do something about it in a way. So just to your point, even lately I've picked up the LinkedIn Premium for company page, and they have this intent that see who are visiting your company page right now, who visited it in the next 24 hours, that you can send to your sales team. Again, another signal in a way. The navigator has a signal saying that if they have an interest in your company or they have been or something like this kind of another signal, right? So I agree with you, George, and I think people listening to this also agree that it's been very difficult to gain the LinkedIn traction than before. But likely because the platform is also growing massively, there are ways, smarter ways, more complicated ways. I'm sure Matteo going to talk about this, how you can kind of leverage the platform. But to your point, again, the old playbook of let's just do a LinkedIn outreach, or as you, George, pointed out, let's just do email outreach, right? Or let's just do that channel. Probably is not a good idea. As you, George, actually mentioned yourself, it's just the platform wasn't that it was before, so it's not as obvious, right? So
that's right. I was checking my notes. I will be finishing, so I'll skip a couple of steps because they kind of repeat the same ideas. But one thing I wanted to bring up is again, this ties to the infrastructure. This ties to the domains, the mailboxes, and everything. Another big development over the past year or so has been the proliferation of email infrastructure providers of all kinds, of all sorts. Again, not naming names, but there are companies that specialize in getting you the infrastructure, at least for email outreach, that's needed in 2025. In even a couple of years ago, it was sufficient to have a handful of mailboxes that you bought directly from Google to run your sales outreach. Perfect. Up to several hundred messages per day, and most of them got into inboxes and not spam. Today, the reality is you don't want to send more than like 30 to 50 emails per day, ideally. And before you do that, you want to properly warm it up. You want to, again, diversify, create this farm of domains and mailboxes. So if you haven't already, that's the way to scale today. It's a technicality rather than just like a strategic approach. But moving forward, if you are planning to scale, you want to start thinking about creating that infrastructure a month or a couple of months prior to doing that scale. So it's a good idea to develop your infrastructure early. Let me quickly see what else is worth your time.
We're gonna send slides alongside with the recording for those who registered. So so just to make sure that you register, I'm gonna send the link real quick. So sorry, George.
Yeah. So to wrap up, the main idea is outreach is never kind of done in silos. It should be integrated with marketing, with inbound, with multiple other channels, with smart data providers, with insights, ideally across the whole organization, from marketing to sales to product, and focusing, again, going back to my main idea, focusing on a selection of few strategic tools, but utilizing at least 90% of their capabilities beats the all-in-ones of the world, or what's even worse, like a combination of 15 other tools that you're constantly stitching together. So that's what I'm going to leave you with. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you, George. We have 1 minute to answer one question, and the question would be: someone in the chat asked, like, with this statement, Patricia did it. She said, like, cold email is dead. What could you tell, George, to Patricia? If it's that, or if it's not that, then where it's not that? What would be your advice?
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, so Patricia said that cold email is dead. Do you agree with her? And if it might be dead somewhere, but where do you think the cold email is live for you? Where does it actually work?
So Patricia, cold email has been dead since 2025 when we started as a business. It's still dead. I'm not going to argue, but anyways, jokes aside, cold email in itself as a single channel, as a kind of this status quo approach of just spamming people without too much um, investing your time and effort, that approach is dead. Cold email, as in combined multi-channel approach within conditional flows with hyper personalization on each and every step without you having to write that personalization, AI doing that. That cold emailing is very much alive, and it's growing as never before. So it really depends on the nuance.
Thanks, George. Matteo, then I'll just bring on your slides. We're a bit behind the schedule, but that's fine. I'm sure you're going to be able to rock us, right, Matteo?
Yes, no problem. I'm going to try to get it quickly. Not going to be a problem. All right. So thank you for having me once again. Today, we're going to spend a few minutes to just take a look at the outreach through the lenses of Expandi. So what we have seen have been the biggest difference this year. Let's start out by first taking a look at what are the most common mistakes that I still see happening almost on a daily basis. The first one would be the fact that too many people are still using too many templated messages with a too high volume. So we still see that most outreach today is still following the copy paste and send to everyone formula, right? And with this kind of messages, we kind of all sound the same, right? And when everyone is sounding the same, no one is standing out. So again, we don't want to work just with high numbers. We want to work with personalization. The second point would be that, of course, LinkedIn punishes overreaching. So the platform actively limits accounts that behave like spammers, or in other words, accounts that start doing outreach and send immediately too many messages too fast, and maybe messages that are all looking the same as well. And also, of course, not only high volume outreach done this way fails to connect, but it can also work negatively for you on a safety side of things, because of course, if LinkedIn detects us as spammer, they could restrict us, right? So we want to make sure that we work in safe amounts and with personalized messages as much as possible. The third common mistake would be that people basically judge us by micro signals, right? Before they even read our message, the people are going to notice our tone, our profile, our photo, our activity. These are all tiny cues that help shape their impression of us. So if something feels off or not personal, our message is going to hardly be trusted. And another fourth common mistake is if we send a message that has no context, that we're going to not have a connection, right? Outreach without a reason feels random, and random often feels like spam. So without signal-based context, our message can only be perceived as noise, for example. There we go. So this brings us to the signal-driven outreach. So what can we talk about this? What can we say about signals? First off, what is a signal? A signal on LinkedIn, for example, is any meaningful action that a prospect takes. For example, like visiting our profile, engaging with our post. Sorry, Michael, saying something?
Yeah, I'm just so agree with you right now. Yes.
Okay, perfect. I'm glad to hear that. Please stop at any moment if you'd like. So again, signals are any kind of action that prospects are taking, like visiting our profile, engaging with our post, even changing jobs, attending an event, following our page. These are all conversation starters that we want to use to start, again, a warm conversation that doesn't feel out of the blue. Of course, we want to use the signals to take an action. So again, it's our cue to reach out because they have already shown interest, or they've already seen, basically gave us their opinion about something. So we want to use that action as a cue to reach out. When we're reaching out, we can use we can use an approach that has multiple entry paths, and that's what I recommend generally. For example, I can start by not necessarily immediately looking for a connection request, but I can start by visiting their profile back, sending some comments or some likes to their post back. So I'm trying to warm them up as well without doing the hard and most important step, which is the connection request. And after having warmed the profile up, I can send a connection request that has a message that's contextual to what they have done, which could be, again, changing job, for example. These type of sequences work best when they use a branching logic. So basically, when we create something that can adapt based on the reaction that the lead is going to have. For example, if we start this kind of sequence and then the profile visits back my profile, let's acknowledge it. Let's say it in a message. If they comment on our post, let's mention it. Let's try to create as much of a natural, real, and human conversation as possible without using that sales pitch or those salesy words when we're starting out. We still have to remember that when we're working on LinkedIn, it is still a social network. So we want to be networking with other people and not immediately pitching what we want to
Let
say.
me put in the marketing perspective. So everyone what's doing is focusing on the conversion stage of the funnel. Let's just convert. But we forget about the awareness stage, activation stage, engagement stage. The buyers are not ready to buy from you and get on that sales meeting yet, right? That's why, sort of like to your Matteo point, right? Let's start a bit few steps before that and be more natural, then start with a conversion and start pitching and selling someone. And then at the end, you just kind of create a cringe moment for everyone. And everyone like, why you do that, right?
Exactly. Yeah, that is absolutely the point. We want to make sure that we start with a natural conversation, and then that's going to probably lead to and evolve into something else. But we want to start as natural as possible and create real connections, because that's at the end of the day what the social network is created for.
Yeah.
Now, taking even another step back, we can think about, before starting our outreach, we can think that we're going to need to optimize our profile, because of course our profile is going to be the first place the prospect will go after seeing our first message, right? So we can think of it as our personal landing page. Now, I know that this can sound a bit basic and obvious, but it's always good to remind it, because I still see, not on a daily basis, but kind of often, people that are trying with maybe very good, incredibly advanced tactics to use signals and perform specific social actions, but then the profile doesn't really respect the authority and the credibility that they want to instill in their prospects. So again, just the most important things of as usual are, crafting a headline that clearly says who you help and how you help them, adding some social proof, some featured content, having professional pictures taken, making your about section sound human and value driven, basically having a professional profile help us already give an incredible head start that we would miss out if we don't have. Following up on this, we can take a look at how a multi-touch sequence that respects signals could look like. Now, once our profile is ready, we can start creating sequences that are respecting timing and context. Now, this is what it looks like, more or less, right? We start with warm-up actions, as I was mentioning, visiting, liking, commenting posts. After this, we can send a short, no-pitch connection request that really helps us start with the context that we're looking for. After that, we can follow up with even more context. For example, something like, I saw you recently shared this type of post. I saw you recently commented on someone else's post about this. What do you think about it? And when we have something like this set up, we can also think about implementing the branching logic. So again, already thinking about how are we going to react when the prospect reacts to our action. So for example, we want to lead with curiosity, not pressure. And if they're visiting us back, we want to mention that in the next message. So again, pre-thinking about a more specific and advanced branch is going to help us have a solid strategy. Something else we can look into is using video and other multimedias as differentiators. Now, as you can imagine, in a crowded inbox, because that's what it is on LinkedIn at the end of the day, creativity could win. Sending something like short personalized videos, 30 to 60 seconds, or also GIFs, images, or some other type of media can help boost our memorability and reply rates. Again, I would recommend, since it's kind of a new type of strategy, especially with voice messages, that's something we have seen the last few months, I would recommend testing it on a smaller batch of prospects first, and then depending on how we see the type of response that we see, then we could increase it and scale it up. Now, that is a big question, overcoming skepticism. Of course, it's a common question that I get, right? Isn't automation just another form of spam? And the real answer is that it depends on how you use it, right? Here's how that works, basically. We want to be transparent. We can tell people that we use tools, but we explain that we personalize every message. We explain that there's a human oversight, that we review our campaigns before sending, that even though we're using automation, there is a reason for it, right? And we're not just spamming like it's 2015 random cold messages. We can also do that, as I mentioned before, by referencing something specific about their content or their profile. And so yes, again, it's a very important point that I wanted to briefly touch upon. Now, let's take a look at something else, which is the time to first reply. Now, with the right setup, the interesting thing about LinkedIn is that, and Expandi, of course, with the use of Expandi, is that in just one day, we can actually, with the right setup, send a campaign live in just 15 to 20 minutes. And when we have a campaign live in 15 to 20 minutes, considering how much LinkedIn is a daily kind of activity for many, many professionals, we can immediately get a response in under 24 hours. Of course, when we are keeping in mind everything we talked about before. So when we're targeting warm leads, when we're not getting out of the blue with our messages. Now, something that I recommend is, as I mentioned before, is to use to start A/B testing before really sending a big campaign at scale. So trying to have 3, 4, 5 different campaigns with 5 different types of prospect with different small little differences can really help us in seeing immediately in the span of even like 3, 4, 5 days, what is the strategy is going to work best on that ICP, and then scale it up. Because again, as I just mentioned before, we want to work slowly. We don't want to work on mass automation. We cannot think of sending 500 connections per day because that's just not what LinkedIn allows us to do, right? So again, testing and then scaling up is always the best approach when we are working on LinkedIn. Now, just to give you a couple of stories from the field, I just wanted to give you 2 quick examples of how this works in real life. For example, Novatech was one of our clients last year, if I remember correctly, that I helped to set up. And we launched a campaign with them in under 20 minutes, of course, because they have been followed by a CSM just like I am, right? And within 8 hours, so after in the first day of working, the second day we saw they already booked a call because in 8 hours they got their first reply, and the prospect even referenced them visiting the profile and liking their post. So they saw the warm action and they replied on with that. So sometimes we don't even need to get to the connection request stage. Already interacting with them with social touch points really help give a signal, give an intent to the lead, to the prospect we're trying to reach out to as well. Another example could be GrowthCo. With GrowthCo, they had really flat reply rates, even though the setup looked advanced enough, and I want to say professional and structured enough. But their problem was in the profile. So even though they studied a really nice strategy and really specific and really advanced, the profile needed a revamp, right? With a better headline, with some feature content, with some social proof, we saw a dramatic increase in the reply rates. And when they added short videos and also GIFs as well, we saw a 25% lift in reply rates. So we can see how sometimes just small tweaks only on the credibility and authority side of things on our profile can really make a big impact. Now, before closing it off, I want to talk about 5 common pitfalls and how we want to avoid them. Now, the common mistakes that I still see daily are, first off, as I already mentioned, pitching too early. So again, we don't want to be salesy. We want to open with curiosity. We want to create interest, and then we want to spark up a conversation. The second one could be ignoring the prospect signals. So again, outreaching to cold leads. When that doesn't work as much anymore as it used to years ago, we want to use the signals to our advantage to start our automation basically from the higher ground. The third one would be relying on fully AI-generated copy. Again, this is something that I see often right now because, of course, AI has taken over any kind of business in the last couple of years, especially in the last year. And of course, it's good to use AI. We need to use it in order to get our work done faster and better. But we still need to remember that we need to have to oversee the AI work, and we still need to have that human touch point that can then send the automation and make it work properly. The fourth one would be, as I already mentioned, the weak profile. So again, let's remember to look as professional and as advanced as possible with our work on our profile. And the fifth one would be the flat messaging. So again, just like I already mentioned, when we're testing, it could make sense to already test on 4 or 5, even 6 different types of campaigns and approaches and messaging. When we're starting out and we don't really have a high volume that we can spend on LinkedIn, it makes sense to already start mapping out which one are going to be the best approaches that we can use, and then invest on them when we see the first results.
I have the number 6 real quick, Matteo, just to add. People don't do their LinkedIn math. So what I mean by that is LinkedIn, each profile has certain limitations in terms of their outreach, the number of connections you send, the number of the messages, the number of actions, right? And you mentioned that yourself that if you're using it too much, then the LinkedIn will feel it's suspicious, then they will automatically decrease you, right? So when you think about that kind of medium, right? Like, okay, I can send I can send from, let's say, 20 to then grow to 40, 50, 60, 70 connection requests, let's say, a day. And then you compound that a week. And then the average connection rate could be 20%. So then really only like 50 to 100 people are adding to you. And then you can send X many messages and you can get X many replies, right? So by just going and breaking these numbers down, you can really see that, oh, maybe I'm not seeing huge results on LinkedIn because I'm only using one profile. Maybe I need to expand and add my team, 5 profiles, 10 profiles. It's like a math, right? So just relying on the strategy and just polishing the strategy with like 1 or 2 profiles, you might not just get enough volume to be able to have some decent result, because then when you compare that with the number of calls you're making or the number of emails you're sending, those are much higher volumes, and now you get the results. So some folks that would say, oh, LinkedIn does work for us, they just didn't do the math. Am I right, Matteo? Yeah.
Absolutely, that makes total sense, and you touch a focal point. Absolutely, I agree. Now let's get to just the last couple of slides to touch on some data. As we can see from this one, we can already see how the average reply rate for 2 different types of campaigns is how much it differs. On the left side, 9.36% is the average reply rate for a campaign that has a message attached with the connection request. So as we can already imagine, we want to use, as I mentioned before, personalized messages that are crafted and specific for the lead and the prospect we're talking to, while the right side, 5.44%, is the average reply rate with campaigns that don't attach a message into their connection request. So as you can already see, it's almost double when we're personalizing. Now, if you think and apply also some warm-up actions, like I was mentioning before, visiting the profile, liking, commenting, and we combine that with a campaign that sends a connection request with a personalized message that actually is relevant to our lead, we can see an average reply rate of 11.87%. So if we already compare this to other channels, we can immediately see how LinkedIn still is an amazing place to do outreach, and basically it is still the channel that keeps on giving, right? LinkedIn doesn't have spam filter, so of course we have less restriction than email probably generally has. LinkedIn is already a professional context where conversations are expected, and even if someone doesn't give you a reply immediately, you are at the end of the day building a connection that builds long-term warm network. So we could still think about reworking with our leads in a second moment. So that's actually all I have to talk about today. I hope it was very clear. And if you have any question, please shoot them.
Yeah, we have many questions. I'll just bring on a few of them. Now you mentioned that LinkedIn doesn't have as many restrictions as email, maybe, but then tell us about the safety, because Ritvik here in the chat asked, what are the best practices for the safety? Because obviously using automation, you can get flagged on LinkedIn and so on and so forth. So Matteo, what would you recommend?
Absolutely. So first off, the most important thing about the safety side of LinkedIn automation is, as I mentioned before, starting with a low amount of connection requests, follow-up messages, all those type of interactions we can do on LinkedIn. And then depending on what kind of signals the platform is giving us, in other words, how many connections is it allowing us to send, gradually scale it up with time, right? So we don't have to expect that if the first month we're sending 10, 15 connections per day, the second we're going to send 30 to 45. No, it's going to have to be more gradual. It's a slower work because at the end of the day, we're still building our image on a social network. The second point would be that now more than ever, LinkedIn is strict in their controls, in their checking. So something that's very important is that when we're using an automation platform, almost anytime, of course, we have this on Expandi, we have a setting that allows us to decide when the platform is going to be performing the action. So when the platform is going to log in our profile and perform the actions we ordered it to do. We want to make sure that we align those times to when we're not manually working in LinkedIn as well, because otherwise, as you can imagine, we're creating a virtual computer that's logging in our profile and maybe us on the mobile phone, sending some likes, posting something, and it's 2 different sessions from 2 different sites, 2 different IPs, that are performing actions. So again, that's kind of the most important one, paired with the having a reasonable and gradual incrementation of the engaging interactions we're sending every day.
What I've done, I set up automation from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. because what I'm doing some, home stuff and then gym and stuff. And then from 12 when I'm logging in and then start doing that. And then I'm doing my manual work. So in this way, I'm covering 12 hours working days. For LinkedIn, I'm just a very hard worker, which was working more hours. Yeah. Thanks for that. It was doing great. Guys, I will bring on more questions in the chat. I know we're, as always, a bit behind, but likely you don't need me to present slides, so we can skip me at the end. So Peter, I think I'm just gonna bring you on right now, and then take your time, walk us through calling, and then if anyone would want to stay longer, I don't have a call after this, so I can stay longer and just present my slides. But yeah, Peter, I think.
Yeah, sounds great. I appreciate it. Thanks, Michael. And Matteo, great session, and same to you, George. And also thanks for the chats. I've really been enjoying the questions that have been popping up there. So what I was hoping to do was to talk about how, outbound has changed so much in the last 2 years versus in the last, 15 years, 10 years, whatever. And I think a lot of it comes down to that the theme that you're hearing from a lot of folks, which is that the automation has to be done in an intelligent way to make sure that you're personalizing, that you're making sure that you're that you're connecting with the individual that you're reaching out to. Because ultimately, I think what you're going to hear from a theme from me as I go through this is how to make sure that there's more human-to-human type connections. And to me, that's the vital thing that's going to be the overarching theme of what I talk about today. So basically what I'll do is I'll split this up into 3 major sections. So I'll talk a little bit about why the traditional approaches for leads are breaking down. And then I'll focus on why live conversations with prospects are so critical. And then I'll talk through some of the best practices around that. So of course, George has talked a lot about email as an approach, and Matteo has talked about LinkedIn as a channel. And so you can get the sense that there's a theme of this multi-channel approach that we've been going through. And so another critical element for a multi-channel approach to be successful is through the phone. And the phone continues to be an amazing vehicle for having great interactions with your prospects and learning. And so that's what I'll talk about mostly today. So I won't dwell on sort of the challenge. I think you've heard the challenge here from the previous couple speakers, but I'll kind of give it a bit of a context around the phone and the like. So what we're seeing is that SDRs today, they have a lot of automation options. They have a lot of tooling that's out there, but there still are a number of blockers that I think are getting in their way. So first off is around research. When you want to have a personalized approach, when you want to be able to have a real human-to-human connection, well, you need to have that personalized information. And right now what's happening is that reps are going out and they're spending a lot of time doing research on LinkedIn, on the web, and other places in order to try to come up with a perspective, come up with something unique that they can share. And we're seeing a day a week or 3 hours a day being spent on that kind of research. So we'll talk a little bit about how you can take approaches that can reduce that amount of time. We're also seeing a lot of burnout across sales development reps and people doing outbound. And a lot of that is just because there's just a challenge with busy work. People are not only having to do account research and the like, but there's the challenge of finding which number to call and placing that individual call. I mean, I'm old enough to remember not just pressing buttons on a phone, but actually spinning a wheel on a phone in order to dial. And it's, it hasn't gotten much better these days. You still have to do that unless you're using technology to automate that. And then I think the critical one is this one at the top of the slide here, which is that when you have phone calls, very few of them are turning into a quality conversation for most people. And that fundamentally comes back to some of the themes that George and Matteo were talking about, which is if you're not coming in with a unique perspective that's tailored to the prospect that you're speaking to, I'm not sure why they would be interested in listening to you. So let's jump into some of the what that triggers really. And so when you have that kind of challenge at the SDR organization, Well, that leads to challenges for the pipeline. First off, SDRs don't have as much time to be able to execute well. So what you end up with is people doing that spray and pray approach because they get worried, they don't have enough time, they're trying to meet their goals. And so what do? They start, just increasing volumes, whereas it really needs to be about quality and making sure that they're executing well. The result is that you aren't engaging with those prospects, and then you're missing those. Okay, so what I want to talk about now is to get a little practical and talk a little bit about how you can use live conversations on the phone in order to be more effective. So we kind of see this in terms of a cycle. So you should have this account research, the idea of being able to identify what signals are out there. We've heard signals from George and Matteo, but using signals, these are things that like 10K analysis, people posting on LinkedIn. Maybe it's hiring or people that have just recently changed jobs, but these kinds of, maybe they've taken on new technology. Using these kinds of signals in order to identify how you're going to frame the conversation and frame the challenge that you're going to be speaking with your prospect about. And then I'm going to spend a fair amount of this conversation talking about very practical things about when you have those live conversations, how you can coach your teams to be more effective when they're on the phone. So we'll spend a bit of time talking about that. When I think about signals, what I'm talking about here is this idea of well, we haven't actually spent much time talking about AI, which is incredible for a webinar that we haven't used AI all that much. But we see AI as being a real enabler of having the busy work automated in a great way. I don't know if you've ever heard this quote from someone who said, "I don't want AI to. I expected AI to not automate painting my pictures. I wanted to do my vacuuming so I can paint the picture." And I think that's what I think AI ought to be about, is automating the things that get in the way of having more and more human connections. And so what are some of those things that you can be doing? Well, AI can do things like that account research. It can look at those signals and identify, what are the things that are keeping your prospects up at night? What are the things that when you get them on the phone that they're going to engage and be interested in? What are the things that you can actually build a business case around? So again, I mentioned some of those, like maybe it's 10K reports, maybe it's what their website looks like and the like. Maybe it's someone has just moved into a new job. Maybe it's a previous champion at your company who's moved into a new role. Maybe they are now hiring for your key prospect. If you're targeting CISOs and you're seeing that they're hiring directors of infrastructure, then maybe now is a great time for you to pounce. So again, using AI not to automate what's human, but to automate the things that get in the way of being more human. And just briefly here, like this idea here of using those signals, I think that signals shouldn't simply be a trigger. Signals need to be the thing that helps to formulate what your conversation looks like and how you're going to make those pitches. So let's talk a little bit about what those best practices look like so that you can have your teams having these great conversations. I totally get like, at BioQuest, just a great point about, that cold calls can be extremely challenging. I think one of the reasons why is because it's unnatural to people to have a templated conversation with someone. Here you are, you're jumping on the phone with someone, you're having a real interaction with them. It's immediate, it's back and forth. You're asking a question, they're responding, they're asking a question, you're responding, or they're making an objection and you're responding. And that kind of natural flow is very difficult to template. It needs to be built on, actual information about the prospect themselves and what are the pains that they're looking for. So what I often see as a great approach is to speak to your prospects and to go in at different levels. So that example that I gave of the CISO, let's say you're trying to get after a chief information security officer, maybe you sell security software. A great strategy is actually to speak to different people in the organization that are maybe below the power line. So that means going into a director of IT, a director of infrastructure, talking to a manager. We ourselves at Nooks, we're selling into typically SDR or sales leadership. Our team will often call into SDRs themselves. Our SDRs will call SDRs and ask them for information about what technology they're using. What are the challenges that they're facing? and learn what's driving urgency.
It's a great idea.
And
That's an excellent use case, Peter.
It totally is. And what ends up happening is that you're able to then collect those insights, build a better business case. And then I think then that comes into the multi-channel approach again, which is you have that information that you're getting from those live conversations, and you're able to use that in order to tailor what that personalized email looks like, to tailor what that personalized DM in LinkedIn looks like. And you're able to do that with the CISO, because now you've heard what their direct reports are saying. So imagine how powerful it is for you to be able to go back and say, hey, I've spoken to 5 members, 3 members, whatever on your team, and these are the principal challenges that they're facing, versus a generic pain that perhaps everybody in the industry is facing. I don't know if anybody's ever had a cold call where I've had one where it was just, hey, what keeps you up at night? That's not insightful, but rather coming to me and saying, hey, I spoke with your email marketing manager, and they said that the return rates are, really challenging. Whatever it is,
Yeah.
So much more compelling.
100%.
So we've actually analyzed about 5 million phone calls and taken a look at like what actually works across all the calls. So I wanted to share some of those best practices with you. Michael and Belkins' team have collected those into the report, which I definitely encourage you to download if you haven't already. It's a great report, including Expandi and replies data plus Belkins data, of course. So we've analyzed over 5 million calls, and in order to get those conversations, there's often these tactical approaches that I think can be very helpful. So the first one that I always coach the teams that I work with, the SDR teams, on is should you be saying, hi, this is a cold call or anything like that? Or should you say, hi, is this Matteo on the other line? Actually, it has no impact. We've seen across 5 million calls, there is no difference between whether a meeting is landed if you're saying these kinds of openers.
Oh, sorry. Something. Oh, here you go.
Okay, no problem. However, it's critical to be able to discover those business challenges. So when a rep gets on the line, an SDR and AE gets on the line, and they start asking open-ended questions instead of a pitch or a yes or no type question, they're more than 3 times as likely to turn that into a meeting. And the reality is that actually it's used less frequently than you'd imagine. Less than half of cold calls actually do that kind of approach versus just hitting with a pitch or hitting with a close-ended yes or no type question. So going in and being more open-ended, focusing on business challenges, not pitches, can be much, much more effective. Of course, having a perspective on what that business challenge is, like I said, using that research can make that even more effective. Now, these numbers that I'm saying, like 3.1 times higher chance, of course, that's based on a correlation, and so causality, of course, is something that I would recommend that everyone tests themselves. So these are suggestions that I would suggest that you experiment yourself. Using case studies and social proof is super important. These are like general case studies, 1.8 times as effective at getting a meeting, but even more effective is calling in and saying, these are customers in your industry that are already using the product. Name recognition matters in those 15 seconds where you're just trying to get that pitch across. So making sure that kind of catches their attention by saying that you work with these 1 or 2 or 3 companies that they're going to know, they're going to have battles with on a daily basis, and that's going to help you to buy that extra 10 seconds, that extra 15 seconds, so you can make that start doing those open-ended questions about the business challenges.
And it's so true across all the channels. Like, I rarely see companies are actually pitching with the business case, right, in them. So if I receive a cold email or LinkedIn, no one tell me, hey, we've done this for 2 companies like Belkins that are doing this, and this is the value we brought to them. Everyone is just talking the more generalized value, but there's no kind of play, tell me you know me in a way, So yeah, so that's so true. Like, especially for phone, because as you said, like, you just need to get those extra 10, 15 seconds on the phone. And if you're going to do that with me, that's going to definitely trigger my attention. I was like, okay, talk to me more, right? It's interesting.
Right. Absolutely. And then one of the last ones I'll mention is around follow-up. It is shocking how infrequently follow-up happens. So someone gets on the phone and they say, you know what, we're with a competitor. The competitor is renewing the contract's renewing in 6 months. Do people follow up? They really don't.
Yes.
Can you call me back tomorrow? Can you send me an email? The send me an email, it is striking how infrequently that happens. You know, if you collect that a little bit of information that helps you to personalize that follow-up email or to follow that follow-up DM, and then you send that note, if you follow up when they asked you to follow up, or you take the cue about renewals or other kinds of, you know, things that you're collecting in that live call, it's almost 12 times as effective. 12 times. I mean, it's crazy how effective that is. And yet, as you can see here, it's only, you know, 2 out of 5 that actually will do that kind of follow-up. So counseling your teams to realize that the money is in the follow-up is absolutely vital. And again, like, you know, that's, I think, one of the advantages in those live conversations on the phone is that even as brief as they often are, you can get that back and forth and learn what makes an effective follow-up. All right, and then the last one here I actually mentioned earlier, which was this idea of targeting decision makers by targeting their teams, and so collecting information from those teams in order to, you know, have a great multi-touch and cross-channel type approach where you're, you know, maybe it's the emails, maybe it's LinkedIn, maybe it's ABM programs, maybe it's who you invite to events, maybe it's how you tailor your ads to them. But all sorts of different ways that you can use that data that you're collecting, those live conversations, to have, again, as my theme was suggesting, more human connections back to the prospects that you're connecting with. And just to leave you with one last little bit of data here is we actually see different pickup rates across different types of personas, and we also see that mobile numbers are just, you know, incredibly effective these days. So you know, the recognition is that, you know, not all folks are going to have the exact same connect rates. Not all folks are going to have the same conversation rates. But you need to do your research and make sure that you're tailoring your conversations to different persona types. So with that, I'll stop there and hand it back to you, Michael.
Thanks, Peter. These are excellent slides. Appreciate you putting this together. Lots of that is kind of fundamental, right? Just fundamental sales, marketing, acquisition, but so overlooked. Like literally, I think like from what you hit it in the head. Like 10 out of 10 times, probably folks are not doing everything that you just spoke about, right? It's just incredible. All right, let me just do this. All right. So we have 11 more minutes. So what I'll do, I still have 5 minutes to share some of my slides, and I'm just going to go over a few things that I think would be the most valuable for the folks. And then we can have maybe a few minutes for the questions, right? Because there's a lot of questions in the chat. I really appreciate people in the chat today engaging. Guys are doing an amazing job. Thank you so much. So what I'll do, I'll just quickly go through some things. So again, there is a pipeline crisis in a way. So the engagement rate dropped across each one of the channels from 2018 to 2025, like just dropping them. Obviously, we all talked about why. George opened up with, the statement that, just the access to the tools and the platforms is has never been before. Like you can get lots of platform for free, lots at $50, at $100, and so on and so forth. So just lots of the automation. The AI, just noise, the best practices, like probably we are writing better cold emails than we were ever, or better LinkedIn than ever, right? So just now, like we just are better at our game, so we need to be more better, and so on and so forth. So yeah, there is a fatigue we've seen as well, especially in the email, if you're just doing email alone. Right. However, and you can add LinkedIn and calling and other channels, and then that engagement and that response rate just goes up, right? That's why we all are preaching multi-channel these days. Here's what kills modern outreach, and this is a slide personally from me. The biggest sin of outreach is cycling through the leads one time and only looking for fresh leads all the time. So the playbook is always, let's just get this 500, 1,000 new names every month. Let's just reach out to them with a sequence or calling list or LinkedIn, and next month move to another sequence and another. I had so many clients that we've analyzed their kind of HubSpot contact list, and we are calculated how many touch points they made per year per contact in their list, and the average was like 2 touches, 3 touches, and maybe 5, 6 touches. How would you imagine doing a business with a company or building trust with prospects when within a year you only had 6 touches with them across all the channels? It's just the stats right now is you need to do at least 60, right? So, I mean, like the nurturing and the multi-channel should just be more proactive in a way. So, and then to Peter's point, people not follow up, right? People not connect, people not whatever, right? So that's why the 90% of the list is people are just leaving on the table. So our methodology and the new playbook and how we see about this is like, how do we engage with these people more often in a more meaningful way? And how do we do that as an entire company, not just as a sales team or as an SDR? It's not about contacting the same people again with the same messaging, just changing the subject line or trying the CTA, but then how do I bring more value to them at the stage of the buying journey they're in right now, and then being kind of more relevant for them, right? So one of the solutions to build the touch points that I personally love, and that comes from me being in sales. So my background is in sales, and then obviously I've kind of built Belkins as the lead generation company, appointment setting. So lots of SDR, lots of sales, running the business. But I learned marketing like over the years. So I led my marketing team and the other marketing team. So I kind of became CMO, and we've collaborated with Peter here on several marketing initiatives as well. So I believe, and we believe, and we have data to back it up, then a lot of the future of the SDR is to being part of a marketing team, not the sales team. Because, and I'm going to explain in a second, the reason is that most of the traditional pipeline that are marketing led were built top to bottom. So you need to start building the awareness and then activate and then engage and then convert. But right now, because of the high velocity and just the speed and the way we are, just trying the different market, we saw that the bottom up approach works really well. That is led by the SDR. So when you're opening a new industry or a new location, what you really need to do is that you first wanted to just understand whether my messaging, my positioning, my offer, whether it makes sense. Am I talking to the right people? To Peter's point, right? Do we talk to the right decision makers? Can we get them on the phone? What I'm selling, do they need it? Is this relevant? We first need to validate that. And once it's validated, then you start thinking about, okay, well, I generated this X conversations. How do I increase my conversion? What do I do for the people to have a more meaningful conversation with me? Okay, they're not ready to get on the phone with me. Can they look at my LinkedIn Live or webinar? Or then, can I get this white paper or benchmark report that they can read? Or can they get the kind of, and then you start working backwards. At the end, you're really going to even be with just creating a thought leadership articles or case studies with, explaining their pain points and then sharing those and then starting those conversations across the board. So by reverse engineering all of that, you really only thinking about what marketing channels I can add that would increase my conversion and that will increase sort of like my likelihood to converting. And the SDRs are the main communication vehicle that will help us to deliver those assets or those initiatives to clients. I wanted to touch base about the personalization and relevancy. I think this is important. We talked about the personalization today. Tell me that you know me. But I think like we always forget about the relevancy part of it. Like, tell me that you know my business or my industry, right? Like I've seen people are trying to personalize, like all of us mentioned today, like a lot of us mentioned today, even like signals that are people changing jobs. Everyone is using the signal that people are changing jobs across the internet. Everyone is using those signals, but it doesn't mean that by using that signals, you can create the more relevancy for me as the business. And people forget that you can use AI to break down industry into sub-industries, to break down two persona into the buying committee with multiple personas, to then personalize my offering for each persona, for each sub-industry, and then kind of map out my outcomes and my solutions to that each persona. So when I'm talking to head of HR or head of payroll or head of finance, I'm talking different language, right? And by finding that, as Peter mentioned, like sense of urgency for some, just business case, some other, you're able to create a more powerful kind of outreach mechanism. So for us, really finding the relevancy and testing that relevancy is much more important very often than personalization, because the same relevancy can be done for more businesses and the personalization is kind of unique. So so I'm going to share these slides. I'm not going to stop with them right now. These are some of the ways you can use to create the overall strategy, how to break down, the industry, the decision makers, and so on and so forth. I want to show these are stats that we've seen for the marketing-based SDRs. So typically, an SDR can reach out to 500 prospects, a month with the only 5 touch points. That is typical sequence within one channel, either 5 calls or 5 LinkedIn messages or 5 emails. You can generate X conversations, you can book this many meetings, and then you can give 2 opportunities. And then your job is to always look for more prospects, more touch points, more opportunities. But then what we've seen is that if you think more intentionally about those 200 prospects, so you decrease the number, increase the touch points, work together to figure out that journey, the multi-stages, and then you think about the buyer journey from both the awareness, activation, engagement, and conversion standpoint, increasing the touch points, over time, you're able to generate much more conversations within this specific list, generate more meetings, and those meetings, because they were generated through more conversations and more touch points, have a higher buying intent. So at the end, your costs are lower, and your opportunities number is higher, just because the way you kind of approach this, right? So it's all about kind of the approach. So I think like that's something that that Belkins thinks about on a daily basis. How do we not just cover the list on a high level, just let's say talk to every time generate more and more prospects to add to the list, but how do we increase that conversion by knowing better the businesses we're reaching out to, the people, the offering, creating more relevancy, surrounding them with multiple channels, looking how we can maximize those channels. And that's actually one of the reasons why we've been able to successfully work with Peter and Matteo and George here, because each one of their company have a very unique set of capabilities and features and things that they do that they're one of the best at, that helps us to maximize our impact, either through the LinkedIn or through calling or through emailing and and other things we work with Reply on. So I think like there's some other things that I wanted to show you, but because we're out of time, I'm not gonna kind of stop on there. So all right. I know we are almost done, 90 minutes, guys. Everyone is cooked after 60 minutes. I appreciate you guys staying for all 90, and as well as everyone here on the call. If anyone needs to jump, I don't hold you guys. Thank you for taking the time. If you can stay a few more minutes, either you guys panelists or anyone in the chat, I would like to go back and just answer some questions, if that's fine with you.
Yeah, I want to stay. I want to hear some answers here. You're stirring people's minds with 60 touch points there. Would you like to answer that one?
Yeah. So it's a year. You can look at the year or the lifetime of a prospect, right? So you can spread it across multiple weeks, multiple months, multiple channels, ads, content, LinkedIn, retargeting, even offline touches. Yeah, I mean, like, imagine that. Like, I have a list of folks. I reached out to them on LinkedIn, and I have this huge conference of manufacturing in Austin, like in 2 months. Why I'm not getting through the list, finding the local businesses in that list that could be in Austin, and then reaching out to them, hey guys, let's meet up, right? I'll be in Austin. There's a big conference. Let's do that. That also counts as touch, because you can meet with them offline or so and so on. So whatever you do that could generate those number of touches, can likelihood to get that conversion over time. I'm gonna show QR code again.
And I would also assume that touch points don't necessarily mean a message to someone. To Matteo's point, you could like what they're doing on LinkedIn. Those are also counting as touch points, and those could be like in decent numbers as well.
That's right. Yes. Any like you've mentioned, web traffic. You mentioned like likes, comments, engagements. Really, like the more you can be active, the better, right? With folks, and even like people that you shared a white paper and then downloaded it and opened it, right? That's also could be a good engagement. So, all right, let's see. There's some interesting questions here. All right, I'm just remove this. All right, let's see.
There's a question about case studies. I don't know if you saw it.
Yeah. So, so there's a question about the case studies. What to do if their case studies are under NDA? Do you want the answer that the legal team likes, or the answer that works in a gray area? Yeah, so for me personally, like if I'm on the phone with someone and I'm not recording, and I have an NDA with a client that I can't disclose their name, well, depending on what kind of NDA and what kind of client. If something sleeps once in a time, that's fine, right? No one gonna sue you for that sleeping of that, especially if you're not in the security, in some government, whatever. But yeah, definitely, maybe not putting on the website, but in the kind of conversation. Anyone have any tips for for this question that was asked?
I just have a comment. I really hate how effective name dropping is.
Yeah.
So I'm a little bit more on your side, Michael. Whenever it's appropriate, like it's a fine line. Obviously, you don't want to break relationships with valuable customers because of it. But when it's appropriate, you definitely want to mention, because again, I hate, like, statistically, we've tested this. If you mention a couple companies in their space, you're doubling and tripling your chances of getting a response, getting into that conversation.
Yeah. I like connecting companies with the conversion as well, like just adding some outcomes. I've seen like analyzing the competency mapping of our customers and generally their positioning. I always don't see a lot of numbers and outcomes, like how do you measure the success of this product or that product, and then how you can then put that numbers in perspective for people, especially for different roles, right? So that's kind of important. It's as powerful as name dropping. We have a question about how do you get more profiles? I think like every one of us have many people in the organization, not just in sales and marketing, in the product. The first question is just take more, more accounts, more people, right? Like you don't necessarily need to. I think like Matteo, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but setting up a new account or buying accounts it's a very challenging to do it right? It's better to optimize and take actual profiles of your teammates that are in the product or customer success, not necessarily in sales, right?
Yeah, most definitely. I think that it's more important than ever now to work even with more profiles that maybe in the past have not been used to have sales motion. But also, even though the overall reach available on LinkedIn has been limited a bit, it is still more important than ever to create content, to be present, to be active on LinkedIn especially. So I would agree that having more profiles, having other roles that are not specifically sales oriented on LinkedIn, active and performing, could absolutely help.
Peter, you mentioned mobile phone numbers work really well these days. How do you, do you have any insights for us about getting those phone numbers? I know Nooks has some phone numbers as well, right? But generally, like, are there any specific industries that have better phone number coverage, or any specific segments that you would say like work really well with?
Yeah, one approach that I think is successful well, first off, mobile numbers absolutely, like because of remote work, they just tend to be super effective. One approach that I think works really well is different data providers have different coverage levels in different industries and different geographies and the like. And so partnering with multiple or using a waterfall type approach can be very successful at getting that. So, a company might be great at very like micro SMBs, whereas another data provider isn't. Or Europe, that's a classic one, is Europe versus North America. someone going from Europe to North America may find that their existing data provider has less coverage in the States and Canada and other parts of the Americas. So yeah, that's what I suggest is like mobile, absolutely, and using a waterfall type approach is effective.
Gotcha, thanks. And I think a last question for George. George, Google and others are starting to suspend email domains even before sending out cold emails. Diversification is still critical. So, what's your approach to kind of diversification typically?
First of all, work with trusted email infrastructure providers who work directly with Google and are partners with Google. I know what this person is probably referring to. There's been, again, without naming names, there's been pretty loud kind of buzz around companies buying accounts that are not intended for cold outreach. Let's put it that way. Student type of accounts and things of that nature that are either free or extremely cheap. So if you get into that, you're kind of getting what you're paying for. You're going to get suspended. If you work with trusted partners, then you're not likely to get into any sort of trouble unless you're doing kind of spamming, which everybody here on this call is not about. Like the way I put it, you want to do the same thing you would otherwise be doing manually if you had all the time in the world. So if you do that, you're not likely to get your account banned.
Yeah. All right, I think the last one about regulations. So question here from Aaron. Any recommendation for handling country-specific regulations for cold outreach? European countries, Canada, quite restrictive. So Peter, what's Nooks' position generally? What do you think about the calling for outreach, European countries, Canada? Any specific regulations or insights for that?
Yeah, I don't want to provide any kind of like legal advice here, but it is always important that you're taking a look at what are the regulations for individual countries. So we have a team that is quite comfortable having those conversations, and so can help provide guidance. But yeah, that would definitely be something we can jump into in a more detailed way.
So the way we look at this, and we do a lot of calling, right, and emailing and LinkedIn, it's about again knowing your customer. So we are a B2B company, right? So all the outreach we also do B2B. So we don't do direct to consumer outreach. So that's why we usually don't use personal email addresses or personal phone number for the sort of like personal gain of the person we're reaching out to, but not for the business. So if you're reaching out to someone with a business intent for the business purpose, using the business communication channels, and then if you can have any signal or any intent, for example, you're connected with people on LinkedIn, especially on those countries that are more heavily regulated, right? Like maybe Germany, for example, or some of the Canadian laws or so on and so forth. Then you can then you can be fine, right? I think like that a lot of those laws were built around heavy hitters, like when you do a mass outreach promoting some investment opportunity or some kind of semi-grayish area. But if you're in a B2B sales and you're doing targeted drip-based sort of like low volume, high impact outreach, then you should be fine in most of the locations. Yes, you would say that some of that is working in the gray area, but come on, this is all marketing, right? Everything is in a way gray area, because if you follow all the rules of everyone all the time, then you cannot build a business, right? Like you're gonna die in all the kind of regulations. So you're not probably gonna use LinkedIn, you're not gonna do email, you're not gonna do calling, you're not gonna do anything, the SEO, nothing. You're probably even not gonna run ads, because it's also gonna, the law of the ads will probably gonna cover something as well. So yeah. Have any insights about this kind of regulations? George, maybe you have, or you, Matteo. Anything to add on top of what I just said?
Not myself, unfortunately. No, not really. This is really something I'm not really too.
You're fine with LinkedIn, yeah.
Yeah, we can speak to the email side of things. We do some calling, but not too much of it. But when it comes to cold calling, again, you really want to make sure that you're using
for the email.
Yeah, so for email, both for email and for
gotcha.
phone numbers, you want to make sure that these are business contacts, and the people typically in a business scenario, they don't mind being reached out to, because that's expected. People are very angry if you're reaching them on their personal phone number, including
Right.
myself. I really hate that. My phone number got into some lists accidentally. I don't know how. And anyways, that's the worst thing that can happen.
Yes.
But if it's a business email, I usually pick up. I like talking to salespeople because I'm in this space. So yeah, regardless of the country, you want to make sure that this is. I think the regulation generally is, if it's it has kind of sufficient intent. Can't remember the exact wording. Then it's okay. And we haven't seen that much kind of. We haven't seen, for instance, cancellations of phone calling from European countries in our platform, or the same with email, business emails, business phone numbers, and that's more or less kind of the line you want to stick to.
Thanks, George. All right, we're done for today. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining in. Thanks again for Peter, George, Matteo for coming in, preparing these slides, spending all this time, all this energy with all of us. Guys, I really appreciate you for joining, everyone for taking their time. I'll just put on the screen real quick here that if you enjoyed the event, just leave your feedback. But really, it's all for today. If you guys registered, we're going to send you all the decks and the recordings so you can review all the insights yourself. And again, thanks, everyone. I will just finish this and then leave this event QR for a few minutes and then ending the stream.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you
So much, guys. Thank you.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, guys.